Hello fellow builders and welcome back to the bench. Mediocre Modeler here, and we are on part 2 of our Ahsoka 3D model build. And I tell you what, the last thing I was doing was printing Ahsoka's head. So I printed it. And then I had to print it again. And then I had to print it again. And then I had to print it again. This one's right. The problem I kept running into was, see how well you can see it. Yeah, it doesn't come in very good on. Well, okay. I'll try and get you some good close-up footage so you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. But I kept getting defects on the face. Like the neck is nice and smooth. And I tried printing it in different orientations. Well, those are the same. I had another one, so I printed it another time. So these were printed upside down, and I thought maybe that was the... Well, it's printing like this. It comes off the printer like that. And then this one I did the other way. I did this one like... Yeah. Trying to get... Because first, the skin looks like... It looks like she has scarring on her face. And this one... Let's see. Let me find something. Let's talk about it right here. So on this one, you got a defect right there, and then there's like a little hook on the top of the nose. So I had to reprint that one. This one just looks like there's scarring all over it, and I didn't think I would be able to get it sanded up because the detail on here is just fine. And I'm still trying to figure it out. What is going on here? This one, she ended up with like some funky scarring on her forehead. Well, she's got those tattoos on her forehead, and I didn't want to interfere with that. If I puttied over it, if I puttied to fill that in, I was probably going to lose detail. So I tried changing the when you send it over to the printer, it says you print it with file measurements or machine measurements, and I chose the file measurements, and it didn't work, and then the machine parameters, and that didn't work. I changed the angle, that didn't work, and it was almost like getting bubbles. I think I was talking about on her head tails, I was getting like little bubbles, and I ended up filling this in with the resin and curing it. And that trick would not work on here because then I would just lose facial detail. And the last thing I decided to do was, let's change resin. Let's try a different color resin. And then when I finally went to the black resin, it printed out really well. Oop, sorry. Look at that. So I was finally happy to get that done. And together, it still needs to wash. It still needs a bit of a wash because it still kind of feels tacky. And I'll probably do a clear coat on the top of that. But the two together, you end up with Ahsoka. Look at that. Isn't she beautiful? You can print this as a one piece, and I think I could probably get the entire one piece in my printer, but that would make for kind of a painting nightmare, having to mask everything off. That's why I did it in pieces. The problem you have when you're painting separate in pieces is where the two pieces join together. So she wears this tiara looking thing around her head, so that's going to give me a nice separation between her head tails and the rest of her head. I'm not going to worry about that seam so much there. The seam that does bother me is going to be the seam that is going to bother me is the seam between the upper and lower bodies, because that's just a pretty good sized gap. People don't have that gap, so I'm going to have to mix up some putty or something and blend that together. The other problem I'm having is that when I printed this hollow, and then I drilled a hole in it to put it on the stand to paint. Well, it's the fluid is slowly leaking out, and I stuck it back into the to cure it for a little bit longer to see if I can get some of that internal stuff to cure. And the problem is that you can see when the resin leaks out, it leaks onto the body and it just strips the paint. It's not taking away any detail, it's just stripping the paint. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to wipe it down. I'm going to give it a good wash, wipe it down. I'm going to glue that hole closed and cure it one more time. But before we get all that, once we get it all together and sanded, we still have to paint it. And if you remember correctly, if you remember from last time, I was trying to decide what direction my paint palette was going to be. If I was going to go with like the blue and the white, or go with the uniform that this is modeled after, which is more tans and everything. And then this happened. Okay, don't get me wrong. Ahsoka episode 5 was fantastic. But at the same time, I'm like, come on, man! I'm already having problems trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But that did give me some ideas. And since this Ahsoka is not based on the animated or the live action or a comic book version or whatever, this is a standalone 3D print. I feel like I can kind of do, well, I mean, I can do what I want anyway, but I can kind of choose my color palette. And so what that means is I ended up going to the store again, because I picked up some other colors. I picked up, like, I was going to go with the pant part. I was going to go with kind of this. No, not that one. I tried that one. That was too light. I was going to go with maybe that color there. Something with a brown, a little bit more red in it. And maybe for the boots, I was going to go really dark. But I like the direction that they're going. And so I went with a white gray. I don't know how well this is going to come out on this, but it's Vallejo white gray 71.119. We're going to put a little bit on here and see how this works. I definitely want a more of a two-tone, so maybe if I go with a white gray and then I think I want to go, I don't know, but let's try what we got, lay it down and see what we get. I just want to put a little color on there and see where we are. Well, after several trips to the hobby shop and picking different colors, trial and error, too dark, too light, too blue, we finally got some colors that we decided were going to work. And we just kept taping and layering. So let's peel this onion and see what we got. The last thing I did was brown of her belt. Well, actually, the last thing I did was the brown of her boots, but same color. Okay. Okay, I can't help myself. Tiny dancing. Oh, sorry. Hey, tiny dancing. Anyway. This is working for. I'm okay with that color. I'm okay with that color. I'm okay with that color. So those are going to stay. I did get a little bit of loss of color where the tape was. It pulled up the paint a little bit. But to fill that gap in between the two pieces, I use Odie's. Downside, stuff stinks to high heaven. So if you've got any rubber gloves to put on, I would suggest doing that. Cut off a little bit, you mix it together until it's one consistent color, and all I did was just take. I made a ball probably about about the size of a small marble, and it cures very quickly. So once you have it mixed together and it's one consistent color, I was pulling little balls off of it and making them into ribbons, and then I was filling the gap in between the upper and lower bodies, and that's where I put my paint edge. Came out really well. Sanded it down. I ended up using a 400 grit sanding stick to sand it down. So for right now, I'm happy with that. What I'm not happy with is that color there. I know I don't want it to be this color gray, but I don't want it to be that either. That just doesn't fit. So I'm still on the hunt for the right gray, but for the most part, I'm happy with the way this is coming out so far. I got her Leku glued together and putty. I got a coat of white on there. And actually, just to give you a good close look, I was doing some experiments with some color, trying to find the right color brown for Ahsoka. So I started with this, and it's too brown, and I went to this one, and I think the one I'm settling on is going to be this one. It's got a little bit of the orangish, so it ended up being okay that I ended up printing so many Ahsoka heads. But what we're going to end up with, just kind of as a sneak preview. Oh, take that out of there. Well, that one won't work. We'll use this one. Boom, boom. It'll go on. Good to know. Wow, that's going to be an issue. I did not. That's going to be an issue. Oh no. Wow. Okay. There. Okay. There. So that's what we're looking at. My idea is to have the chest plate and the side pieces and the front of her boots be the same color. That's, I think we're gonna you go with that light blue on that. But I got to get that right, so it means I'm gonna have to take this back up and then figure out what color I need for my gray. This is the second color gray. I'm not happy. It's closer, but I'm just going to mask it off again and try one more time. I think I did a test color of, I think that's the color I'm going for. And I've been resisting that color because it's too close to the primer. And my brain is saying, well, that's just primer. So, that is a Mission Models Light Ghost Gray. We're going to mask her up again, spray paint that, see what we get. So, third time's a charm, hopefully. So finally, after 3 attempts, third time apparently is the charm. I have the gray that I want. It's yes, it looks like primer to me, but for the situation, it's the right color. Come on. And so now that, well, okay. It's not quite the same. Those two aren't quite the same. Close enough. They're in the same family. I like it. So, I already got that clear coated, so this part's good to go. I've done the boots. I chose a metallic gray for the boot, so the regular foot part of the boot is brown. We went with a metallic gray on that for both the boots and the gauntlets on her arms. So we need to peel that back and see what kind of touch-up we're going to have to do on everything underneath that. But yeah, these I'm okay with putting a clear coat on. That's not a big deal. I want to get these arms uncovered just to make sure the armor color. Lost my block pen. Yes. These arms were a little bit hard to trim, coat with tape. Tape wasn't as flexible as I wanted it to be. Yeah, and I didn't get as good coverage. I got some bleeding here and there, but once I put a good wash on here, it won't matter then. Yep, I like it. I like the contrast between the two. So I can clear coat that. Then we just have to work on the blue. So she's got the side armor pieces, and then some to cover her back and the front. And we're going to have the same kind of fight as we had with trying to find the right gray, because I want a light blue. I don't want a baby blue, kind of a gray blue, and I'm chasing this color. And so I've got a little bit painted. I mixed some up between some blues and some grays, and to see if that would get me where I needed to be. So let's get the rest of this tape off. Yep, I like it. All right, put those in there. Those are going to be great for clear coat. And there's the blue. It looks better than it did when it was wet. Put this one like that.
think we'll leave it. Yeah. 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 So, since we're going to leave that, that means we're going to, I need to clear, everything needs to get clear coated. And these outer pieces, the outer edge, I want to be metallic. I want it to be the same color as that. So, I got to do a clear get on there. So I got to clear coat all that and paint. The only thing I did, I'm thinking whatever color this was going to be, I was possibly going to do for her chest piece there. I'm still thinking about that one. Although I could make it the same color as her armor. So that way the boots, her gauntlets, and that are all armor colored. Well, every time I think I'm pretty close to hitting that next level, I realize there's a little bit more work there than I was expecting, because I have decided her chest piece, I do want it to be that armor, that metallic gray, which means I'm going to have to mask the whole thing off. The front of her boots are the same color blue as those side pieces, so I need to mix up a little bit more of that to paint that, which means I need to mask up the boots and unmask the part that is masked. And I still need to go watch Ahsoka Part 7 again so I can get medium more done. So we're just going to have to call it right now. We're just going to have to make this our stopping point, and it's a good stopping point. So we should be able to complete this in 3. But we made some pretty good headway. Now, even though I'm going to stop building and go watch Ahsoka, I think this would be a good time for you to go build something. We're at the end of the video. Now that your mind is racing, you're invigorated. You're like, all right, we've got the inspiration. We're gonna go build something. So do it. But until next time, I want you to have fun, be safe, and go build something. And let me know about it. We'll talk to you next time. Off to see Ahsoka. Pew 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 pew.